There are three main types of substance transport across the cell membrane: passive transport, active transport, and bulk transport. One type of substance transport is passive transport. Passive transport does not require any energy to move the substance across the cell membrane. There are three types of passive transport: diffusion, facilitated diffusion, and osmosis. Diffusion is the movement of nonpolar molecules through the membrane from a high concentration area to a low concentration area until equilibrium is reached. Facilitated diffusion is the movement of polar and charged molecules through a protein from a high concentration area to a low concentration area until equilibrium is reached. There are three types of facilitated diffusion: channel proteins, ion-gated channel proteins, and carrier proteins. Channel proteins, also known as ion channel proteins, are amphipathic proteins. Amphipathic meaning it has a hydrophilic and hydrophobic region that allows ions or polar molecules to pass through the cell membrane. This protein does not change shape, so is very specific as to what it will let through. Ion-gated channel proteins are channel proteins that have two shapes: an open shape and a closed shape. What will happen is a molecule will bind to the closed shape, causing the protein to change to an open shape, which will allow molecules to pass through the cell membrane. When the bound molecule is removed or knocked off, the protein will change back to a closed shape until a molecule binds again. Carrier proteins are proteins that will change shape when an ion bonds, which will allow that ion to pass through. Osmosis is the movement of water molecules through a protein aquaporin from a high concentration area to a low concentration area until equilibrium is reached. In osmosis, there are three types of solutions that can occur with the cell and water concentration levels: hypertonic, isotonic, and hypotonic. Hypertonic solution is when there is a lower water concentration outside the cell than in, so what will happen is water will leave the cell to achieve equilibrium. An isotonic solution is when the cell and water concentrations have achieved equilibrium. A hypotonic solution is when there is a higher concentration of water outside the cell than in, so water will move into the cell to achieve equilibrium. Active transport is another type of substance transport. Active transport requires ATP to function and move the substance across the cell membrane against the concentration gradient. An example of active transport is the sodium-potassium pump. The sodium-potassium pump is a protein pump that takes potassium into the cell while simultaneously pumping sodium out. In order for this process to occur, this protein must change shape constantly. Bulk transport is used when a cell needs to transport large polar or charged molecules through the cell membrane. There are two types of bulk transport: endocytosis and exocytosis. Endocytosis is a type of bulk transport which will cause the cell to engulf foreign objects. Phagocytosis, penocytosis, and receptor-mediated endocytosis are different types of endocytosis. Phagocytosis is when a cell will engulf food. Penocytosis is when a cell will engulf liquid so it can obtain the solutes. Receptor-mediated endocytosis is when a cell will engulf specific substances that react with the receptors outside the cell. Exocytosis is a type of bulk transport which is like the opposite of endocytosis. Instead of engulfing objects, exocytosis is when a vesicle will fuse with the membrane so that it can release waste outside the cell.